Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the latest installment of the RO Sports Show, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. We've got a full cast here tonight as we get started with the NFL Draft, which we're going to get into here in just a second. But first off, to my immediate right, we've got Jonathan Pope joining us for the first time on the Sports Show. To his right, regular Jeremy McKenzie, and of course Russell Parker on the other end. Now, as I just mentioned, tonight at 9 o'clock, the NFL Draft is kicking off, and I know that we're excited to the point where we've actually come up with our own NFL mock draft. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to go through order 1 through 32. We're each going to make a pick for each team that's got a pick in the top 32. So with that being said, let's get right into it. I do want to precursor this, however, with saying that we're going to treat this as if there were no trades being made, because obviously if we tried to get into predicting what kind of trades might happen tonight, yes, we'd be here till through the weekend. So. But like I said, let's get right into it. I'm going to start first. The draft order is going to be myself, John, Russell, and then Jeremy. So starting off, the Cleveland Browns have the first pick, and with the first pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Cleveland Browns select quarterback Sam Darnold from the University of Southern California. Now, as we mentioned before, Tyrod Taylor is going to be the placeholder, if you will, for Cleveland this year at the quarterback position. The Browns, of course, need to find their long-term quarterback, which they've been trying to do now for the better part of what seems like 30 years, and I feel like Darnold is going to be the safest bet. John?
I think so. For the second pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the New York Giants will select Bradley Chubb, defensive end out of NC State. Now, Saquon Barkley is the hot rumor here, right? No doubt, and assuming the Giants don't trade down. But, Dave Gettleman's history is pass rusher, and he is about the battle in the trenches, protect the passer on the offensive side, get the passer on the defensive side. So, and he's looking to replace Pierre-Paul, so I think that's who they're going to be looking at in the second pick.
All right.
Well, with the third pick in the first round, the New York Jets are going to select Josh Rosen from UCLA. I mean, it's kind of a toss-up between him or Baker Mayfield, but I think it's going to be Rosen here.
All right.
Okay.
Cleveland Browns will be selecting running back Saquon Barkley from Penn State. And they say by 2020, the Cleveland Browns will have the best offense in the NFL, which, to me, with all the free agents acquisitions they have picked up, I could truly see that Cleveland could have the future of the best offense.
Yeah, and they've been collecting draft picks for what seems like the last 2 or 3 years under this new regime, kind of taking almost a MLB Moneyball feel to it. Next up, the fifth overall pick, the Denver Broncos are going to take quarterback Josh Allen from the University of Wyoming. Now, of course, General Manager John Elway knows big arms when he sees them, himself being one of those guys, and I think that Josh Allen personally has the biggest arm in this draft, a guy that can shoot the ball all over the field. So I think by the time we're done tonight, Josh Allen will be a Denver Bronco.
Absolutely. And at the sixth pick in the NFL Draft this year for the Indianapolis Colts, Quentin Nelson, offensive guard out of Notre Dame. I think it's pretty obvious to say if Andrew Luck's not on the field, the Colts aren't going to do anything.
Right.
So Nelson's the best lineman in the draft. And then granted, that is if they don't trade down and they go for that. But I think that you're looking at trying to give Andrew Luck a little support in that offense.
Sure.
Well, with the seventh pick in the first round, Tampa Bay Buccaneers going to pick my boy Minka Fitzpatrick for Alabama. Roll Tide. I think some people think Derwin James will be the first safety off the board, but Fitzpatrick offers more versatility to a team like the Buccaneers here.
All right.
And also with the eighth pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Chicago Bears will pick up cornerback Denzel Ward from the Ohio State Buckeyes, which we already see the Bears already re-signed Kyle Fuller to a long-term deal, but picking up Ward, we can see a tandem for years to come that pretty much the best corner in the draft.
All right. Moving on, the San Francisco 49ers have the 9th overall pick. We have them taking linebacker Roquan Smith out of the University of Georgia. Now, Smith is a big difference maker at the linebacker position. He comes in with none of the red flags that surrounded Reuben Foster, who's had that position with the 49ers. who was the team's choice at number 31 last year. Of course, we did get to see a lot of Roquan Smith in the college football playoff this year. This guy was all over the field, just a dynamic guy on defense.
Absolutely. And with the 10th pick, the Oakland Raiders will select outside linebacker Tremaine Edmonds from Virginia Tech. Now, Edmonds is young. He's 19 on draft night. Plenty of upside. John Gruden's there. Paul Gunther loves linebackers. John Gruden's real old school. He kind of fits that defense, can play off the ball, and he can rush the passer. So I think he's a good look for their defense.
Definitely.
In the 11th pick here, Miami Dolphins are going to take Baker Mayfield from Oklahoma. Mayfield could go higher than this later on tonight, maybe as high as 3rd overall, but without projecting trades in this mock, I think he's here.
All right.
Also, with the 12th pick in the draft, the Buffalo Bills will select safety/cornerback Derwin James from Florida State. We clearly could say the Bills need a quarterback at this moment, but that's really not an option here at this time. But by Buffalo picking up Derwin James, that will help prove their secondary.
All right. My favorite team, it's funny that I ended up getting this pick, but with the 13th overall pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Washington Redskins are going to take defensive tackle, and I love this guy's name, Vita Vea from the University of Washington. Now, personally, I have a hard time seeing Vea making it past this. We could even see a scenario, depending on what kind of trades are made, where he could go before that. But he's a big-time run defender. And then, of course, having to face Ezekiel Elliott and maybe Saquon Barkley, depending on how things turn out twice a year. Yes. Washington's obviously going to need some help on the defensive line.
With the 14th pick, the Green Bay Packers will be taking Harold Landry out of Boston College. Plays linebacker and defensive end. Now, in my opinion, he's possibly the most pro-ready of anyone.
I would agree with that.
And the more I hear about him, the less likely I think it is for him to make it anywhere past this. I think he'll be 20 or above.
Yeah, and there's been talk that the Lions have definitely looked at him, and I think the Lions aren't picking until 20. I don't think there's any chance Landry makes it there.
I don't think so either.
With the 15th pick, the Arizona Cardinals are going to pick cornerback Josh Jackson from Iowa. Cardinals really need a quarterback, but I think it's too early to take Lamar Jackson and Josh Jackson, no relation, of course. I think it's too much of a playmaker to ignore.
Yeah, he absolutely is.
With the 16th overall pick within 2018 NFL Draft, the Baltimore Ravens select wide receiver Calvin Ridley from the University of Alabama. Roll Tide is General Manager Ozzie Newsom's last draft, so of course he's taking the playmaker, give Joe Flacco a go-to option to throw it to.
Yeah, which it seems like the Ravens are always in the need for a wide receiver.
Yes.
Joe Flacco doesn't seem like he ever has any weapons in his arsenal, so maybe if Ridley ends up in Baltimore, they'll have somebody to throw to. Moving on, the 17th overall pick is going to the Los Angeles Chargers. Hard not to say San Diego still, but the Los Angeles Chargers. And I have them taking another Bama boy, defensive tackle Deron Payne. Now, I think I mentioned talking about him last week. The Chargers already have two very good edge rushers in Joey Bosa and, of course, Melvin Ingram right here from Richmond County. Now, they also need a run stuffer to anchor the middle of that defensive line, and I think Deron Payne is the man to do that. This guy is just, I think I said if you look up the definition of run stuffer, you see his picture.
Yes, right.
3 Alabama players already in the first round.
Which is not uncommon, though.
That's pretty common. With the number 18 pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Seattle Seahawks, Marcus Davenport out of Texas San Antonio, defensive end. There's a lot of boom or bust with Davenport, right?
Yes.
The Seahawks need that high upside talent. Now, he started playing late in his life.
Right.
So the progression he's made from the time he started to the time that we're in now, he's progressed so much. It's really, I would say, he has the highest potential of any of the pass rushers in the draft.
And I think a big reason for that is because he started late. He played at a small school like Texas San Antonio. Yep. And you got to look at the fact that if he does go to Seattle, they're having a lot of turnover on that what do they call it, the Legion of Boom defense.
Yes, and also at the same time they are needed defensive line because you're looking at Michael Benson with Philly and then Cleve Everett with the neck injury could be career threatening. So we don't know what's the status of his future right now. So I could see Seattle taking Marcus Davenport with the 18th pick.
Yeah.
All right.
With the 19th pick, I'm going to handle right now with Dallas Cowboys.
Somebody had to do it.
Fate.
I'm going to give them wide receiver Cortland Sutton from SMU. I think GM Jerry Jones can't resist skilled guys, and I think Dallas can find one of those guys here from the state of Texas.
Okay. We're going to Motown for a little bit. With the 20 overall pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select defensive tackle Taven Bryan from the Florida Gators. Well, it is not think that the Lions are not only focused on defensive line, the D-line position, but I can see UPEC guard Will Hernandez or even Alabama Rashad Evans as this pick here. But new head coach Mike Petrera needs some of his players on the defensive side of the ball. Brian is a blank canvas with a ton of athletic ability.
Now, moving a little bit east, we're going to go to Cincinnati, and with the 21st overall pick in the 2018 draft, the Cincinnati Bengals will be taking center James Daniels from Iowa. We've now got 2 Iowa guys coming off the board, so 2 Hawkeyes here. Now, I will grant them this. Ohio State's Billy Price might be the best center in the draft, but Daniels is not far behind him and would be a great fit for Cincinnati. Of course, you're always looking for offensive linemen no matter which position it is, whether it's center, guard, tackle, you name it.
Absolutely. With the 22nd pick, the Buffalo Bills select running back Darius Geis out of LSU. Other than Barkley, I'd say he's the next best option in this draft class. McCoy's turning 30 this summer. His contract is kind of maybe it's there in 2019, but he runs angry. I think that'll work well in their winter. So
yeah, and Buffalo, because of that winter weather, they always are like a run team, a run first team because of the weather they have to deal with. All right, Russell.
I'm going to go with for New England Patriots on the 23rd overall pick. They're going to pick Leighton Vander Esch, I think I said that right, from Boise State. I don't think they're going to take a quarterback in the first round. I don't think Patriots would do that. I mean, it's possible, but I think Bill Belichick's more going for a linebacker here.
All right.
Oh, yeah, to my favorite team. Keep pounding.
How'd that work out?
With the 24th overall pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Carolina Panthers select offensive guard Will Hernandez from UPEC. We're looking at, and this will be a great pick for Carolina because we lost Andrew Norwell to Jacksonville during the free agency period, and we need suitable depth. Only that, but I can see Will Hernandez come in and start right away and pretty much dominate.
All right. Also in the mid-20s, the 25th overall pick, Tennessee Titans. I have them taking another lineman. This time it's offensive lineman Isaiah Wynn from the University of Georgia, another Georgia guy coming off the board. Now, first of all, if Wynn's medicals check out, because he's had some injury problems, he's definitely going to go in round 1. It's just a matter of where. Of course, I think he'll go to Tennessee. Now, physically, he's long enough to play tackle until Jack Conklin comes back. He's had ACL surgery. Of course, he was, I think, at least a first-round pick. But, of course, I think that Wynn's long-term home is going to end up being at guard.
The 26th pick, the Atlanta Falcons will select cornerback Jair Alexander out of Louisville. And at this point, I think he's the best player left on the board. He's tough, fast, and a great value for the Falcons right there at 26.
Yeah.
Well, with the 27th pick, New Orleans Saints are going to pick the 4th Alabama player going in the first round here. Rashaan Evans, linebacker. I think Saints nailed last year's draft pretty good. If they had a 3-down linebacker like Evans in the first round, they might hit another grand slam this year.
Yeah, and we were saying it's not uncommon for this many Bama guys to come off the board, and we're going to get into Alabama later on in the show. But they always just retool and have another set of guys to come up next year. All right, moving on. All
right, my second favorite team, the Pittsburgh Steelers, with the 28th overall pick. They will select quarterback Lamar Jackson out of the University of Louisville Cardinals country. A little bit out of left field, we're looking at Big Ben's not getting any younger, and I think this right now, it's time for Pittsburgh to select their successor.
All right. The Jacksonville Jaguars are up next at 29th. And for this year's draft, I have them taking offensive tackle Mike McGlinchey out of Notre Dame. Now, McGlinchey actually projects as a right tackle in the NFL. Of course, in Jacksonville, he could sit for a year behind Jeremy Parnell before taking over, which I think will be beneficial for him. But I will say this, Notre Dame, year after year after year, just produces offensive linemen. McGlinchey no different this year.
Absolutely. Number 30, In the 2018 NFL Draft, Minnesota Vikings will select defensive tackle Maurice Hurst out of Michigan. I think he might slip off of some people's boards. He's got a heart condition, but he's a great three-technique pass rusher, and he can replace Sheldon Richardson next year.
All right.
Well, number 31 overall pick, they're on New England Patriots. They'll select offensive tackle Colton Miller, another guy from UCLA. I think Miller isn't for everyone, but the Patriots like big, tall offensive tackles, and Miller is definitely that at 6 feet 9 inches. So good guy there for New England.
Yeah, and that's a tall order on the offensive line, and it makes me wonder. If Tom Brady's back there behind center, it kind of becomes a little bit of an obstacle to throw around or over a 6'9" offensive lineman.
Yeah.
And then finish us up here, Jeremy.
All right, say the best for last for the Super Bowl champions, Philadelphia Eagles, with the 32nd overall pick. They will go with cornerback Mike Hughes from the University of Central Florida. After waiving Darryl Worley and eventually signed with the Oakland Raiders, Eagles are in need at corner, and I like his nice talent of toughness and versatility.
Look at that, a national champion got up in there.
Yeah, and we're going to get into that later on in the show as well. So, but yeah, just to wrap up, that is our, having a brain fart here. Yeah, but our Richmond Observer Sports Show's NFL mock draft. There, I got it together for 2018. And, of course, this is all kind of a crapshoot. This is what we think it's going to turn out to be. Obviously, we're going to see a lot of trades, a lot of teams moving around. There's always some surprises when it comes to draft night. And, again, next week we'll have to come back, see what actually happened, and then maybe get a better assessment of who we think is going to be the teams to beat coming up in the 2018 NFL season. So, John, we appreciate you joining us for the mock draft this week. When we come back, we're going to get into the NBA playoffs, of course, coming up, or actually right in the middle of it. We're going to continue coverage on that. And then as we move further into the show, we've got some NASCAR news. And, of course, at the end, love it or hate it, and our big impact of the week. All that and more when we come right back from the RO Sports Show, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics.
Rockingham Farm Supply in downtown Rockingham, at the corner of 220 and Green Street's a great place to stop by and have some fellowship and fun. Pick up your dog food, seed, even chicks for your farm, a little bit of everything, and a great selection of zero-turn lawnmowers and other lawn care products. Stop by and visit the local family-friendly atmosphere at Rockingham Farm Supply. Again, that's Rockingham Farm Supply at the corner of 220 and Green Street in downtown Rockingham.
At Richmond Community College, we prepare you for a high-skill, high-paying career in a variety of fields. From business to education, engineering, utilities, healthcare, criminal justice, information technology, and human services. At Richmond Community College, we can save you thousands of dollars on tuition through our university transfer programs that provide a seamless transition to universities and colleges throughout North Carolina. At Richmond Community College, we are always developing new courses and programs in response to the communities we serve. We offer day, evening, and online courses, and you can now complete 5 curriculum programs entirely online. At Richmond Community College, we believe in helping you prepare for a better life. Richmond Community College. Local college, big impact.
Exit Realty Platinum in Rockingham has listed one of the most beautiful homes in Richmond County. Located in Rockingham on Ledbetter Lake, the home features 4 bedrooms with bamboo floors and a kitchen featuring stainless steel appliances and granite countertops, and a master bedroom that overlooks Ledbetter Lake, along with a spacious tile shower and the attached master bathroom. The open living space leads to the back deck with a perfect view of Ledbetter Lake, and the property features its own boat dock. Want to see this beautiful home? Call Nicole Hayden with Exit Realty Platinum, your source for homes in Richmond and Moore counties.
My name is Jim Leach, and we have been using the Tim Hayden Construction Company for the last several years.
My name is Dave Owens and my wife Beth. We had some damage here at our place in Knollwood Village.
January 2nd, our house flooded upstairs coming through to the first floor.
Tim has responded very quickly with his team of people.
Our repairs went extremely well.
Tim made a very difficult situation much easier for us.
And welcome back to the RO Sports Show, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. Now that I've untied my tongue and said the name of the show right this time, we're going to continue the NFL talk real quick here. Late last week, the NFL released their 2018 schedule for the upcoming season. So I wanted to go over some of the marquee matchups and some of the games that people should and will be looking forward to in the upcoming season. First of all, the kickoff game is going to be the Philadelphia Eagles versus the Atlanta Falcons. So we're going to get to see Carson Wentz, who's back from injury. Of course, he didn't get to play in the Super Bowl, going up against Matt Ryan. So actually, let's do some quick predictions. And I know all of this can change between now and then, but just the kickoff game: Eagles Falcons. Who are you taking? Falcons here.
I got Philly.
I'm gonna take Philly too, only because they're the reigning Super Bowl champions.
Exactly.
And I
think the Falcons are gonna be a dark horse coming into this season.
Well, the Falcons aren't a pushover. I don't even know if dark horse is the right term for it. They're a really good team.
Yes.
Matt Ryan, anytime you've got a quarterback of his echelon, you're going to have a good season. Now, we're having some games that are going to be overseas again this year. Of course, the last few years I've been playing some games in the UK, in London at Wembley Stadium. Same thing for this year. They're going to have 3 games across the pond this year. The Seahawks are going to be battling the Raiders. The Eagles will be playing the Jaguars, and the Titans will be facing the Chargers. Now, first of all, I just want to say real quick before I get predictions, our very own Sierra McQueen has plans to go to that Eagles-Jaguars game. Of course, she's a big Eagles fan. So, Sierra, we're going to try to get you to take some photos, maybe some videos while she's over there in London. I think that'd be cool for the RO Sports Show. But first of all, predictions. Seahawks-Raiders.
I'll go in for Oakland because I believe this is John Gruden's debut and coming back and able to get that win.
All right.
Seahawks.
So I'm going to go Raiders too, just because, we're talking during the draft part about how the Seahawks defense is missing a lot of guys. I think that might be the difference. Eagles-Jaguars, who are you taking?
I'm going with Jacksonville.
Okay.
Eagles.
All right, I'm going to have to take the Eagles again, just for the same reason I mentioned earlier. And then Titans-Chargers.
I will go for the LA Chargers. I say San Diego again.
I know, it's still easy to do that. Who you got,
I
Russell?
think I'll go with Chargers too.
Yeah, I'm actually take the Titans because Mariota, I think it's time for him to step up, become the quarterback everybody thought he was going to be, and I think this is the season to do it. Now, another big matchup that people are anticipating is Green Bay versus New England. Of course, you got, in my opinion, the 2 best quarterbacks in the league with Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady. This is going to be on Sunday Night Football in Week 9. Who you got?
I'm going to go to Lambeau Field and go with Green Bay.
I've got to go with my Packers.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Packers too, just because I've got New England fatigue still. Now, on Thanksgiving, NFL is always synonymous with playing games on Thanksgiving, and there are some other games, but the big one this year is going to be Falcons-Saints. Who you got?
I'm going with the Saints.
All right.
Falcons.
As a Panthers fan, I thought you'd say neither. Both of them are going to be fighting for a playoff spot, but I'm going to take the Saints. Drew Brees, he re-signed this year. I think it's going to be a big year for him.
Yeah.
The Patriots going to be playing the Steelers in Week 15. Of course, you assume by this point there's going to be some playoff positioning that's going to play into this. Who are you taking in this one?
I'm going for Pittsburgh. I just don't like New England.
All right.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Steelers as well.
Yeah, I the same thing I
Steelers.
just said about having Pat's fatigue. I'm actually going to take the Patriots here just because I actually think by this point both of them will already be in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Again, it may depend on which seed, but I think Brady will prevail over Big Ben. Now, I mentioned playing some games over the pond this year. They're also starting a game this year in Mexico City for the first time. On Monday Night Football, November 19th, the Rams taking on the Chiefs. Who you got?
I got the LA Rams.
Yeah.
I'm going to take the Chiefs on this one.
I'm going to take the Rams just because they made all those moves in the offseason. They've got what's on paper looks like a stacked team. Of course, they actually made some moves with the Chiefs, didn't they?
Yes.
Marcus Peters, I believe, was one of them. And then finally, a game that you say you're headed to this year. Cowboys will be heading to Charlotte to play the Carolina Panthers on September 9th. Of course, you get the battle of mobile quarterbacks in Prescott and Cam Newton. Who are you taking?
I'm going to say this on record. I do not like Dallas. I despise Dallas. I'm going for Carolina. Keep pounding.
Yeah, I would have been upset if you said anything else.
I don't like our team, first of all, but I can withstand Carolina a little bit better than Dallas. I'm picking Panthers.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Panthers. I'm actually just going to take my heart out of this because I'm not a big fan of either one. But I just think the Panthers are the better team of the two. I also think maybe losing Des Bryant might hurt.
We know you're
Yeah.
Cowboys.
Yeah.
Now, I asked you guys before we started taping, looking at the schedules, who we think are going to win the divisions this year and who we think is going to end up in the Super Bowl. Russell, let's start with you.
Well, for NFC North, I've got the Packers winning that one there. In the East, I've got the Eagles, the South Falcons, and the West, the 49ers. Then over and of course the wild card is Cowboys and Panthers.
Okay.
So I think the AFC is going to be North Steelers, East Patriots, the South Jaguars, West the Chiefs, and the 2 wild cards Broncos and Colts.
All right. What about you, Jeremy?
All right, for the NFC North, I got Minnesota. NFC South, keep pounding Carolina. NFC West, I got the LA Rams. NFC East, the defending reigning Super Bowl champions, Philly Eagles. And for my wild card, it will be New Orleans and the San Francisco 49ers. The AFC North, my second favorite team, Pittsburgh Steelers. The AFC South, Houston Texans. AFC West, the LA Chargers. The AFC East, always New England.
Yeah.
And the wild card is Jacksonville Jaguars, and then push come to shove, I want to see how this team gonna do this year. It's gonna be Cleveland Browns.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You know, with all the moves they made, that might turn out to be a legit pick. For my picks in the NFC, in the East, I've also got the Eagles. I've got the Packers in the North, the New Orleans Saints coming out of the South, the Rams winning the NFC West, and my 2 wild cards, I have the Vikings and the Panthers. Now, as far as the AFC, I've got the Patriots in the East, as usual. The Steelers coming out of the North. The Houston Texans coming out of the South. Remember, they got Deshaun Watson coming back, hopefully for a full year. I've also got the Chargers coming out of the West. And then my 2 wild cards, both out of the same division of the South. I've got the Jaguars and the Titans. So I've actually got 3 AFC South teams making it from that side of the league. Now, let's talk Super Bowl. Russell, who you got in your Super Bowl?
Patriots over the Falcons.
And who you got winning?
Patriots.
All right. We actually saw this a couple years ago. Of course, the Falcons are up 28-3.
Yeah, we'll see what that happens.
Now, I will say this. The Super Bowl 53 is going to be played at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. So we could see a scenario where a home team actually plays in their home stadium.
Yeah,
but you have the Patriots winning.
Yep.
So, okay.
Yeah, because Minnesota came close to
You
getting
just can't
there.
beat Brady.
Yeah, that's true. And there's like some kind of stigma over the fact that nobody's ever won a Super Bowl in their home stadium. So, all right, what about you?
For my Super Bowl pick, I got the New England Patriots versus my dark horse team is the LA Rams. And for the win, I'm going to say the LA Rams going to dominate defensively. They're going to get Tom Brady a run for his money. And when push comes to shove, I think the defense is going to stand up. Jared Goff will have a good game. There it is.
You and I actually have the same team winning. Now, instead of Brady and the Patriots, I've actually got the Steelers getting to the Super Bowl this year. And I've got the LA Rams playing them, and I've got the Rams beating them for the same reasons you just said, because of that dominating defense. Jared Goff, I think he had a great year last year. I think he's going to improve, even though he had a Pro Bowl type season. And, in addition to Gurley in the backfield and Sammy Watkins, who was it they picked up? Brandon Cooks on the outside.
Yeah, Brandon
so
Cooks.
Now they've got a speedster on the wide receiver position that they can stretch the field even more with.
And even with the defense on paper, with the acquisition of Dominican Sue and Marcus Peters, and then franchise tag LaMarcus Joyner.
Yeah, that's what I was saying with that defense this year. Of course, it's on paper.
On paper,
we saw
they look
Philly
good.
a few years ago make this dream team scenario, and it didn't play out for them. We'll have to wait and see. But again, you and I both have the Rams as Super Bowl 53 champions. Now, going to move on from the NFL and get into some NBA. Of course, the NBA playoffs are still ongoing. Some of the first-round matchups have finished up. There are a couple that are still ongoing. We're going to get into just a few of those here. First off, the Boston Celtics are up 3-2 over the Milwaukee Bucks. They're actually going to play tonight at 8 p.m., so if you want to check that out after the show and right before the draft starts, of course, you can get into that a little bit. Now, of course, if the Celtics win this, they'll be moving on. If the Bucks end up winning, they'll tie it up 3-3, and they'll go to a Game 7, of course. How do you think this plays out?
I truly believe that Boston go ahead and finish this out and move on to the second round.
Russell, what do you think? Even with Kyrie out.
I'm going to go on the flip side here and say Milwaukee's going to get this one.
All right, so you think they'll win this? Do you think they make the comeback, or does Boston eventually move on?
Upset.
Okay. All right, now moving on. The 76ers, who I have making it to the finals, believe it or not, they beat the Heat 4-1 overall. They actually finished this up this past Tuesday. And I want to ask you guys this. The Heat are done. Where do they go from here? I mean, should Wade retire? Who's going to be the man in Miami?
I truly believe that right now, just from sources saying Wade have not made a decision on his future yet, but I truly believe I think he's going to come back another year to pretty much pretty much gets, solidify his career in Miami, and I hope in free agency or in the draft that they can get some talent around him to make for a deep playoff push.
What do you think, Russell? Should Wade retire? Maybe should the Heat maybe go after LeBron again? I mean, where do they go?
I think he should go another year, like you said, try for LeBron. I don't think he's done here.
All right. Now, moving on, the Warriors beat the Spurs 4-1 overall again on this past Tuesday, so the Spurs are now done. I think all of us actually had the Warriors winning this series eventually. You didn't?
No, I didn't.
Well, that's on you, because I don't know if anybody thought the Spurs were actually going to
beat
them.
I'm a Spurs fan, man. Come on.
Yeah, but you got to think up here sometimes on the sports show instead of down here. But they beat them 4-1 on Tuesday. Now, what about the Spurs? They're an older team. They got some older guys. Some of them probably need to retire. And I'm thinking of Parker and Ginobili right off the top of my head. So what do they do? Do they try to keep Kawhi? Because, he's a free agent.
Well, coming from being a diehard Spurs fan, right now we are in talks right now to see where his commitment is to the team. And hopefully, as we get in the next coming weeks, as we talk to him, hopefully he'll commit to us and play for the Spurs long term. But as far as with the team overall, I can see LaMarcus Aldridge stays around. But I think we need to retool our roster and getting younger with Ginobili and Parker getting a little age up there and Paul Gasol. But I think the draft's going to help us out and probably bringing some people to come and help us out in San Antonio.
All right.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with everything you say. You know your team, so
yeah.
Well, let me ask you this, Jeremy. What happens if Kawhi doesn't come back? Are the Spurs in a scenario then, because Parker's done, Ginobili's done? If Kawhi's gone, are they at a point now where the Spurs maybe start over? Is that even something they can put in their vocabulary?
I think we'll put like being a Spurs fan. I think if we ever in the event that have trade Kawhi or he just pretty much want to say I want out, I think the worst case scenario we could do is probably get draft picks back, but
Yeah, but he's a free agent. They could potentially lose him and not get anything back.
Yeah, and Showcane, even where we let him go, we got a lot of cap space where we can bring in a couple of big time guys in, but I can see that will pretty much put San Antonio put us at almost the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, it very well could. And then finally, the New Orleans Pelicans were the only team that swept their counterpart. They beat the Portland Trailblazers 4-0. They actually wrapped this up this past Saturday, so they've actually got some rest to get ready for their next opponent. So let me ask you guys this: were the Pelicans this good, or were the Blazers overrated? Because I've been sitting here talking Damian Lillard's praises for the better part of a month.
I think like I said in the beginning of the New Orleans when the playoffs started, even during the season, I said New Orleans Pelicans gonna make a lot of noise because when you brought in DeMarcus Cousins in a trade from Sacramento, him and Anthony Davis and Rondo and Drew Holiday, I said this is gonna be a team that the Western Conference better beware.
Yeah, and we're starting to see that in this first round.
And then the reason, and I can see in the playoffs against Portland Trailblazers is they pretty much took advantage of this whole situation where you got Damian Lillard pretty much was a one-man team and pretty much he had no help. So what happened was, even with DeMarcus Cousins being hurt, that put Anthony Davis in a leadership role to carry the team on his back, and Rondo came in and Drew Holiday pretty much putting up numbers. And I get my Katos off to New Orleans for what they done.
So what do you think, Russell? I mean, Portland had some home games, so were they just too good to be true?
I think since New Orleans is there and they're going to have some fire here. This is the playoffs. You can throw out the record from the regular season, and anything can happen here. It's no different than the college basketball tournament. Anybody can win this at this level. I think we got a solid team here from New Orleans.
Absolutely. And then to get back to some local basketball, the Hornets have been looking for a new coach. Of course, they fired their previous coach, Clifford. They're getting ready to interview Spurs assistants Ime Udoka and Ettore Messina, who are two of Greg Popovich's guys. Now, if these names sound foreign, it's because they are. They're guys from Europe, which is kind of the system that Popovich runs, where they spread it out and shoot a lot of threes, which now we're starting to see taking over the NBA. Another name that's floated out there is former Memphis Grizzlies head coach David Fizdale. Now, would one of these guys make the best fit, or maybe Jerry Stackhouse that we mentioned last week, or somebody completely different?
I'd say somebody completely different. Like I say, you need to go for a veteran head coach who knows, ain't been around, and see what happens.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think last week I was saying they should kind of not go after somebody who's already got that, but I think maybe they should go after somebody now who's got that experience to help them get back on track. Because starting over completely, it could be anything. They can be worse, they could be better. We don't know on that certain. So I think somebody experienced will definitely help them.
Yeah, the same thing I said last week. I'm going to stick by it. I think that instead of going after an established guy, they should go after not necessarily a rookie, but a younger coach that has some new ideas. I don't know if it's one of these two guys from the Spurs or Jerry Stackhouse, but I think I'm still going to stick by the fact that the Hornets need to take this thing down to the studs and start over. And I think that if I'm going to stick by that and say they should do that, then I think they should start over from the coaching position as well. So, again, when we come back next week, we're going to continue our NBA playoffs coverage. By then, we'll be done with the first round, so we'll be able to recap everything that happened there and, of course, be getting into the second round of the playoffs. And we'll be covering NBA playoffs from now until June because, the playoffs seem to last forever when it comes to the NBA.
I think it should be a topic right there already. It's too long.
Yeah, and we could get into that in the coming weeks as well because it is a legit argument. Do they play too many games? Because you look at it, I don't want to get into it too much here, but half the league gets into the playoffs here because by the time they're done, there's 16 teams that are in the NBA playoffs. So, yeah, that's definitely something that we'll bring up here in the coming weeks. But that's going to do it for this segment. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, Russell and I are going to do like we did last week. We're going to talk some NASCAR, and again, Russell's going to talk more than I do, and also get into some more college football spring games that happened this past weekend. All of that and more when we come back from the RO Sports Show.
McNair Auto Sales is the place to buy your pre-owned car, truck, or van. To be the best, it takes big selection, friendly staff, and great pricing. We guarantee a no-hassle buying experience, and financing is available right on site. So come see us today. We're located at 1026 East Broad Avenue in Rockingham. And remember, with over 40 years of experience, you know McNair is the name you can trust.
Family Pharmacy is a local pharmacy that's been in business in Rockingham for over 10 years. Located in the Food Lion Shopping Center on US 1 North, we have easy access into the store and a drive-thru for your convenience as well. You can download the official Family Pharmacy app at myfamilypharmacy.com and we'll help you set it up to text you when your prescription is ready, and you can even set it up to fill your prescriptions when due. Our motto is we'll treat you like family, and it's something we truly mean. We take the same care in filling your prescription that we would take for our own family. Family Pharmacy, we'll treat you like family.
Willow Tree Antiques and Gifts is all about rustic home decor and gifts. You will always find a variety of unique antiques, vintage, and new items in our shop. Come and see our selection of housewarming, new baby, and wedding gifts. For the man in your life, we have many collectibles, Boker knives, and leather. And ladies love the jewelry, purses, candles, hats, and t-shirts. We also offer a 30-day layaway program. Come and experience shopping at Willow Tree Antiques and Gifts.
Hello, I'm Tammy Benson, and this is Nancy Bowling. And we're here to tell you about the wonderful service at hospice and what they have to bring, from the nursing services to the medical director, to in-home aides, to a chaplain, to bereavement, to everything you can imagine. They were there to take care of it.
I cannot think of how the experience with hospice could have been any better professionally, spiritually.
And welcome back to the RO Sports Show, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. Now we're going to get into some NASCAR, as I mentioned earlier in the show. And, of course, we were at Richmond Speedway this past week. So, first of all, who won this race?
Kyle Busch won this one, his second driver to go 3 in a row this season. Of course, he surprised everybody in this race this week as well because he started really close to the back. I think it's actually the furthest back as anyone ever started at Richmond Raceway to win the race. So, I think he started around 32nd, and he actually led about roughly the last 30 laps of the race, too. Joey Logano had a solid performance that day, though. He won the first two stages, But as the race went on, it seemed like it was going more in Kyle Busch's favor, and he finally closed it out.
Now, last week, who did you have winning this race?
I believe it was Brad Keselowski, who actually finished 8th. It wasn't a solid day for him or anybody from Penske, but other than Joey Logano, of course. Jamie Johnson had a good race, though. He actually finished 6th. First time he's really been up there in a while.
Now, you mentioned Logano, and you haven't really talked about him a whole lot this year. Of course, you're a big Logano fan. What's up with him this year?
Well, I think he's finally starting to get some speed going on. Of course, Penske has moved to a 3-car team now. They've got Ryan Blaney in the in the 12 car now. So I guess they're trying to find that balance to increase performance on all of those guys. Of course, when you bring in a third driver or just add another car in general, you got to spread that money around to all 3 of those drivers. And I think that might be something there as well. But I think Joey's finally figuring out things. Him and Todd Gordon, the crew chief, they got something going here. Of course, Richmond's one of his best tracks, so it doesn't surprise me he finished 4th. But yeah, especially since last year when he got caught with the violation at Richmond last year, I think that's kind of hurt his confidence in his ability. But I know he's got it, but I think he's just kind of hurt from that right now. Of course, he also had the baby on the way. He already got a baby too. It might be something he's thinking about in the back of his head. As a family driving now with a family, and I don't want to take too many risks.
Let me ask you this: some people like to debate about whether NASCAR is actually a sport. And a lot of people would say, well, it's just guys in a car driving around in circles.
Oh, it's nothing like that.
But you mentioned confidence. How much does confidence play into a NASCAR driver's mentality?
Well, could you see yourself going 200 miles per hour bumper to bumper side by side with other cars?
No, but I also don't train for it either.
I mean, really, there's not many motorsports out there that has that kind of action all the time, so it's really hard to even train for that to begin with. Drivers maybe in the ARCA series have something close to that, but nothing in NASCAR other than these big races like that. But yeah, it's hard to train for this type of race, and the confidence to go out there and do it. And if you don't have that confidence, why are you out there?
Right.
So of course these guys do have confidence, probably not as strong. Probably you gotta have that mentality thinking that I'm going to go in and win this race every single week. I think Kyle Busch has that mentality right now because he's got a lot of haters, and he's like, I'm going to show these haters. I think Kyle Busch is certainly doing it, as well as Kevin Harvick and as well as Martin Truex Jr. They're the top 3 guys right now.
Which, of course, you see that mentality across all sports where, if you're not the guy that's saying, I'm going to play to win, then you have no business being on the track or on the field or on the court.
Look at Nick Saban and Bill Belichick, 2 of probably most hate guys right now in their respective sports, but they're the best.
Yep, you're absolutely right. Now, moving on, where are we headed to next?
Well, we've got Talladega coming up, a super speedway, the biggest race, one of the biggest races of the season, also the longest track, a little over 2.5 miles. I think it's 2.77 miles in length. Huge. I mean, it could be raining on one side of the track and be daylight on the other. It's happened before. But fortunately, we have no rain in the forecast this weekend down in Talladega, Alabama, so that's all good for them. Of course, Dale Earnhardt Jr. usually is one of the biggest drivers and has the best chance to win this race. Of course, anybody can win this race. It's Talladega. So it'd be interesting to see who has the best chance this week coming in. Alex Bowman, who's now driving the 88 car, replacing Dale Earnhardt, he's got a lot of confidence coming into this race, thinking, hey, he's going to bring Junior Nation together for him, and we're going to get this win together. I think that's kind of his mentality coming into it. But we'll see what happens.
Now, who do you think has the best chance? Who you got?
Brad Keselowski, among active drivers, Brad Keselowski has the most wins. And I think it's 8, and I cannot go against that number. I think Brad Keselowski has this track figured out better than anybody else right now, so I'm going to go with Brad on this one.
All right. Now, speaking of Richmond Speedway, I read a report on ESPN, and those that were watching may have noticed, may have not, but they're actually working on construction on Richmond Speedway, kind of giving it a facelift. Now, I say that to say this. You mentioned that this was one of the lowest viewed it was actually the lowest viewed NASCAR race in history as far as TV views. And I say that to say this. With Richmond Speedway getting a facelift, should NASCAR in general maybe try to give itself a facelift, maybe try to maybe come up with a different persona instead of whatever they're working with now is like the good old boys racing? Do you think they need a kind of a facelift, so to speak?
Well, I don't think it's just NASCAR that's hurting. I think all sports are hurting in general when it comes to television broadcast, because everybody's watching like that anymore. Everybody's got their phones, their tablets, their Xboxes, and all that to watch it now. I watch it on my Xbox, so I'm probably not counting as one of his viewerships. But regardless, I think NASCAR does need to do something to change that. Of course, they've been trying that. They partnered with Monster Energy for the Cup Series to try and one of those benefits will be attract younger people to come and watch it. Of course, younger people are not watching sports as often as they would back in the day. So I think everybody's going to feel this overall. I think NASCAR is going to be okay still. I've heard people say they're going to be done in 5 years, but I think they'll be okay.
Well, and Virginia is one of the few states that has two different tracks. Of course, Richmond and Martinsville. Obviously, North Carolina used to be one of those with Charlotte and, of course, Rockingham.
And North Wilkesboro.
And North Wilkesboro going way back. Do you think that at some point NASCAR maybe might want to take a look at going back to its roots and maybe coming back to the South a little bit? Or do you think they're going to continue to keep spreading to bigger cities and keep moving west and north?
Well, I can say that the difference between Charlotte and Auto Club Speedway over in California sells out, Charlotte does not. So maybe the South is not as big on racing as it used to be, and that's the reason why NASCAR has moved out away from here to California, moving a race down into Florida, more in the Northeast. And they've done that, and it's been successful. I don't think it's really going. If they go back, I don't think it's going to help them at all.
Okay, and the guys.
I would love for them to come back, especially Rockingham.
Right.
But I don't think it's in their market and in their best interest to come back as far as a business goes.
And the guys that are in charge of that know a lot more about it than I do. Not so much you, because you're like a NASCAR guru here for the sports show. But a familiar name that's making a comeback on the circuit.
Yeah, Matt Kenseth is returning back. He's going to do part-time this season, 2018. He's going to take over the number 6 car. Trevor Baynes, of course, the current active driver. He was full-time, now he's moving to part-time. He's going to be switching the ride out. I believe it'll be Kansas when Matt Kenseth makes his re-debut.
So they're going to split time in the car.
Right.
Okay.
And then in 2019, Matt Kenseth will take that ride full-time. Trevor Baynes, not sure what's going to happen to him yet, but of course he has MS, and so that's kind of might be has an effect on him with that, of course. I hope for the best for him, and I know I'm not a big Matt Kenseth fan at all. The past few years that him and Logano had about there. So, but I can respect the driver, Matt Kenseth. He is a great driver, and I think he deserves to get back in there. And it sucks what happened to him last season, where he kind of got booted out of Joe Gibbs Racing for younger talent. But I think he's going to be a solid driver coming back to his roots over at Roush Fenway.
And I was going to ask you, did Kenseth retire? I mean, what happened there?
He never said the R word. He never did. So he said he was going to maybe take a year or two off, maybe take 4 to 6 months off. Who knows the way he said. So he never said this was the end. So of course he wasn't lying about it, because here he is coming back.
Right.
Of course, he started off at Roush Fenway in NASCAR, driving number 17 car back then. And he actually won the final race of the Cup race out there in Rockingham.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's right, he did. Now, do you know how old Kenseth is off the top of your head?
I believe he's getting into his 40s.
Okay, so kind of getting up there for NASCAR, which would make him obviously one of the veterans. But like you said, don't call it a comeback. So that's going to do it for NASCAR this week. Of course, next week we'll come back and do it all over again after we leave Talladega. Moving into college football, last week we touched on some spring games that happened. We're going to do the same thing this week. Of course, some of the big-time programs playing their games this Saturday. We're going to start with Notre Dame. The Fighting Irish had their spring game. Now, I want to bring up, first of all, there seems to be a quarterback battle going on with Notre Dame between Ian Book and Brandon Wimbush. Now, Wimbush was the guy that started there last year, ended up losing his spot to Book, and Book actually ended up starting this game. Now, Notre Dame's going to start the season against Michigan at home on September 1st.
It's a big game there.
So I say that to say this: can Notre Dame be a contender this year?
I don't think they got what it takes to take down Michigan as a good team, and this will be certainly a great matchup. I think Michigan's going to get the edge here. I really don't know if you can base one spring game where they kind of come out there and have some fun,
right?
On who's going to be starting. But if Book came out there to start at the beginning with, I think it's kind of showing that he will be starting this season off.
Yeah, and I would. You're right. It's too early to be figuring these things out. Although it is fun to speculate.
Oh yeah.
I do think that Notre Dame Michigan is going to be a heck of a game to start the season off with. Jim Harbaugh and Brian Kelly are two of the top coaches in football. I could see this one going either way, but as far as being a contender, Notre Dame is one of 2 or 3 schools that still play that independent schedule.
Yeah.
Because they
That
do
hurts.
that, it does hurt them sometimes in the end. Now, it helps them sometimes because of that they play a lot of top-notch teams. So if they run the table like they started to do last year, then they automatically vault into the college football playoff talk. But, again, as we saw last year, you start losing 1, 2, 3 games, you're immediately out with not many chances to make it up because you're not in a conference. So,
and I really think they need to be in a conference to add on to say, hey, we've got a conference championship at the end of the season. That does help out. I know it didn't help out too much for Ohio State last season, but it can help.
Or Penn State the year before that. Now, moving into the SEC, Tennessee, the Vols had their spring game this week. I know. Now, of course, they've got a new coach, Jeremy Pruitt, coming over from Bama, taking over for Butch Jones. Their quarterback, Jarrett Guarantano, went 15 of 27 for 226 yards and 2 touchdowns. So a great game by him. Tennessee has a solid running game. What's the ceiling for Rocky Top?
Well, first of all, I want to say it's kind of funny how all these haters against Alabama comes up, and then they always ask for our coaches.
Right, yeah.
I think
and that happens every year, it seems like.
I think Pruitt will be a solid asset to Tennessee. I think that they can get them a couple more wins this season, not have a mediocre season like they did last year. I don't think they're going to get against Alabama at all, or someone like they could probably get very close to a SEC East championship, but they probably can't seal the deal at all.
Yeah, I mean, with Georgia in the East, I'm not sure
Yeah.
Tennessee's going to be able to move up to that top spot. But Tennessee's one of those programs, it seems like ever since Philip Fulmer left, they've been wanting to get back in that national title picture, and they just can't do it. And I know the last couple of years, there's been a lot of hype before the season started.
It's like that every year for Tennessee.
And they never seem to be able to deliver. And maybe
all show and no tell.
Maybe some things will change with Pruitt. As the head coach, of course, he'll have to start bringing in his own guys eventually and see how that turns out. But I don't really think this year is going to be much better than it was last year.
I think
for the Vols.
Pruitt has the tools to build a good solid team there for Tennessee.
And he was a defensive coordinator, right?
I believe it was offense.
Offensive coordinator. Okay. Yeah, I was trying to figure out because Alabama turns over so many coaches.
Of course, Kirby Smart just came out of Alabama to go down to Georgia.
Went to Georgia,
Lane Kiffin down there to FAU.
Right, right. And speaking of Bama, they had their game this past Saturday. And one thing that I took away from this that seems like you can say every year is that their front seven, someone said that they're, quote, terrifying. And I want to read off some names and some stats for you from the defensive side. Defensive tackle LeBron Ray had 4 tackles for a loss and 2 sacks. Defensive linemen Raekwon Davis and Quinnen Williams each had 2 sacks apiece. Linebacker Christian Miller, who's going to kind of be the leader of this defense, he had 2 sacks. Defensive lineman Isaiah Buggs had 7 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, and a sack. So, we're talking about during the mock draft about how no matter who they lose on defense, especially, they just roll them back over and bring in a new set of guys.
Conveyor belt, just moving them on.
Yeah, and we've talked before about whether Jalen Hurts or Tua is going to be the starting quarterback. It seems to me with this defense, it's not going to matter, right?
Oh no, defense wins games in the SEC especially, and it certainly helps out a lot when you get into a national championship game. I'm always been a firm believer in defense wins championships.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: is another trip to the college football playoff, is that a given?
I want to say given because there are a lot of threats that Alabama has. Of course, they got to play against Texas A&M, who has a lot of hype going on with them down there.
Yeah.
I think LSU can still be a threat no matter what LSU's record is in the season. They're still a threat to Alabama, in my opinion. They can put on some great games no matter who's better than who. Auburn, as much as I hate to say it, they can be a threat.
And then you could potentially run into Georgia again in the SEC title game.
Yeah.
Because, again, I don't know if you agree, but I think Georgia's probably the team to beat in the East.
I think, and give them 5 years. I think I said this back on Live at 5 a few months ago, right before the championship. Georgia will win a championship within 5 years.
Yes, I could absolutely see that. And then Nebraska, Cornhuskers, not a team we usually talk about, but Scott Frost. The Scott Frost era has begun in Lincoln. Of course, he came over from the University of Central Florida. We're going to talk about them here in just a second, which is why I brought up Nebraska here. They have a run-pass option offense, which they've always run. I'm not sure if Frost is bringing that over. I know that Nebraska's run that for years and years and years. Can Nebraska make a run at the Big Ten title this year?
That's a possibility, but I really think that Ohio State's going to continue their dominance So regardless if they make it or not, Ohio State's going to be that blockade there, and it's going to stop them.
I think Nebraska. I can think of a handful of teams ahead of them: Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan State. That's 4 right there that are ahead of them in the pecking order as far as the Big Ten. And then finally, like I mentioned, UCF. They actually unveiled a 2017 national championship sign in their stadium before their spring game Saturday, and their players also received championship rings. What's your thoughts on this?
All right, so I've been in full support of UCF making the playoffs.
Right.
But they didn't make it.
Yeah.
Bottom line, you're not champions. Stop acting like it. That's the thing. They can be. They're pretenders. They're not contenders.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's funny, and it's maybe for the kids that were involved in it.
I think really
something cool for them.
I think they're not really trying to actually officially claim that they are champions. I guess they are in a sense, but I think they're really trying to get attention to the playoff committee and say, "Hey, we're undefeated. We should have been in there. Consider us next year when we go undefeated again," or something like that. Or maybe even representing all the smaller teams that are not getting up there from the big teams that are in those major conferences.
That's what I was going to say. Maybe doing something like this will catch the committee's eye, and maybe they do come up with exactly, and they come up with a spot to where all the other smaller divisions, if you will, have a chance to maybe fight it out and get into the playoff that way. So,
and I would love to see a conference champion to be in the playoff. Every conference championship, I think there's 9, maybe 8, but there's just enough where we can have maybe an 8 playoff team right there.
I think it worked out to where you could have all the champions and then maybe a couple of at-large bids, and maybe one of those teams like a UCF gets in as an at-large if they go undefeated. I think that's a big caveat is if you go undefeated in a smaller conference, then you should get a shot at it. Mm-hmm. Now, do we know if they'll stand up to them? You don't know. Of course, they whipped up on.
Well, they're certainly getting the media attention. I think that's where the playoff looks at the most is who's going to get in the media coverage.
And if nothing else, maybe this will help out with recruitment for the Knights. So, but that's going to do it.
In the draft, one of us even said that a UCF player was going to go into the draft.
Yeah, Shaquem Griffin, the guy that's got one arm, who's a beast and had a great combine. So I could see him getting drafted. He's a linebacker. But as I said, that's going to do it for NASCAR and college football this week. When we come back, we're going to finish up the show the same way we all do with our Big Impact of the Week presented by Richmond Community College, our Athletes of the Week presented by McNair Auto Sales, and of course, Love It or Hate It. All that and more when we come right back from the RO Sports Show. Actually, I need to go grocery shopping. And I need a new notebook. Look at that. Look how thick this is. And it's already full.
At least you got a notebook. I mean, look at this. That's all I got.
Yeah, but you also have a laptop. Of course, I do too, but...
Yeah, you got a more of an advantage.
I don't bring it. I need to bring it. And welcome back to the final segment of the RO Sports Show brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. And we're going to get into it first, our Big Impact of the Week, brought to you by Richmond Community College, whose motto is, of course, local college, big impact. So let's start with you, Russell. Who's your Big Impact of the Week?
Well, I've got a big impact that's not on the field, but it's off the field. Grayson Wade, Richmond Senior High School softball player. She's going to help a kid out fighting cancer. Grayson Wade is helping out Kaylin KK Rush from Montgomery County. She met this little girl, I think, last year, and she's battling leukemia. And so Grayson's actually going to put on a penny war that will raise funds to help her medical expenses. I think it's Cordova, Rockingham, Hampton, Ellerby, and of course Richmond Senior High School. They're all participating in this. So that's a big impact there she's going to make on this child. So huge props to Grayson for doing
Absolutely. Very cool. Jeremy, who's your big impact?
I just want to say congratulations to some fine young people on the girls and men's track team. Asia Kearns, Dante Miller, Jaleel Baldwin, Preston Coker, and Malik Stanback for placing first, second, and third places in their relays during their time in the season final against Hope, Purnell Sweat, and Pinecrest. Congratulations again.
Big impact there. And my big impact of the week is going to Oakland A's pitcher Sean Manaea, who threw a complete game no-hitter this past Saturday. He had 9 innings of 0 hit, 0 earned run ball. He had 2 walks, but he also had 10 strikeouts. He's 26 years old. He's in his 3rd MLB season, but his 1.23 ERA comes in at 4th in the American League. Of course, the reason I bring him up, his pitching coach is the RO Sports Show's friend and Richmond County resident, Scott Emerson. So congratulations to not only Sean Manaea, but to Scott as well. Now, moving on, our Richmond County Official Athletes of the Week, presented by McNair Auto Sales. For the Female Athlete of the Week, we have Paige Ransom, a freshman outfielder on the Lady Raiders softball team. She's already hit 8 home runs this season, which is the most already in a single season by a freshman. Of course, they're not done yet, so she still could hit some more and take that record even further. And then the official Male Athlete of the Week is Bradford Pittman, a freshman singles player on the Raiders boys tennis team. And I've been fortunate enough to cover them this year. There's been several matches this season where Bradford has won the lone points in a lot of matches during their Raider boys tennis season. So congratulations to Paige and Bradford, and I think this is the first time that both athletes of the week have been freshmen. So of course, kudos to y'all. And that is your Richmond County Official Athletes of the Week, presented by McNair Auto Sales. Now, something I'm going to plug in another little thing here that we're trying to do is the RO Sports Show's online poll that we've done a few times on our Facebook page, and we did it this past week, and we asked everyone, should North Carolina Tar Heel Luke May go pro or stay at UNC? Now, he's actually dipped his toes in the water, so to speak, when it comes to the NBA draft. He didn't hire an agent, which means he still could come back to Carolina. The way this played out online was 10% said he should go to the NBA, 90% said he should stay for his senior year. Of course, around here, I think most people, at least that are Tar Heel fans, would agree with that.
Yeah.
And I do want to mention that we're going to try to do this every week, maybe on a Sunday or Monday or Tuesday night before the show starts on Thursday. Come up with a different topic to put out for the RO Sports Shows poll each week. So stay tuned and look out for that on the Richmond Observer's Facebook page.
I think one of the polls should be, will Jeremy ever break his streak?
Yes. It will, and if it hasn't, we'll figure out a way to make it happen. Now, finally, as we always do, love it or hate it segment to finish up the show. Starting out here, going to talk some wrestling. Daniel Cormier, who is literally an active UFC champion, he's got a belt at home, has accepted a head coaching wrestling job at Gilroy High School in San Jose, California. Love it or hate it?
I love it. Get back to the community and mentor some young people and further their career in wrestling.
All right.
I'm going to have to say hate on this one just because I think UFC and wrestling, now I know the pro wrestling they see on like WWE, but this is like high school wrestling,
right?
Correct? So they're kind of different ways of doing this here, I'd say. So I don't think he's really kind of fit for it unless he's had experience in that.
I agree with that, but I'm going to say love it because I say that it's good for him to give back to these local kids at a high school. It isn't the same type of wrestling. Obviously, isn't UFC or MMA, but I think he's got enough experience to be able to teach these kids at least a little something on the mat. So I'm going to say love it. Now, sticking with the fighting theme here, ex-NFL and Panthers defensive lineman Greg Hardy has booked his first MMA debut. Now, of course, Greg Hardy's been in a lot of trouble, especially legally. One of the reasons why he's no longer in the NFL, so maybe he's going to try to go down this MMA path. What do you think about him booking his first MMA match? Love it or hate it?
I love it. Panther Nation forever. Greg Hardy, good luck. Hope you kick behind.
All right.
Yeah, I'm going to say I love it.
I'm going to say hate it because I don't like Greg Hardy. And he beat his girlfriend. So for
Come
anybody
on, man.
For anybody to stick by this guy, no offense, but anybody that beats on their girlfriend, that I got no place for you. So whether it's beating his girlfriend or beating some guy in the ring like this, it's just because it's Greg
Well, I'm
Hardy.
going to say I think love it because he's leaving the Panthers.
That's right.
Yeah. Now, going to go to the baseball field. High school baseball game ends with an 82-0 score. Now, let me just describe this here just a little bit. Obviously, that's just an astronomical number for a baseball game. What happened here is, obviously, there was a team that was really good, there was a team that was really bad, and the really good one beat the mess out of them. Now, the team that won, they actually tried to pump the brakes a little bit, but this team they were playing was so bad that, and they didn't want to forfeit, that they ended up winning 82-0. So this crazy score, love it or hate it.
I'm going to say love it because in a joking manner, 82-0, really, I think we need to start getting some pen check because anybody who gets 82-0 in a game like this, that's very unreal.
Right.
I'm going to say love it because the coach who did not decide to forfeit this game is teaching his players a lesson here. You need to step up and do your job at the plate. So, I'm going to say love it for that.
I'm going to say love it. I always believe in sportsmanship. So if the team that lost had forfeited, it might have been a different story. Or if the team that won did this like in a mean way, I'd change my mind. But they had the chance to forfeit. They didn't. This team tried to, not score as many points. They probably could have almost doubled this if they wanted to, but they didn't.
Yeah.
And I think because of that sportsmanship, even though it is 82-0, I'm going to say love it. Now, moving to college football, Colorado State got $37.7 million for the naming rights to their football stadium. That's a lot of money for college football. Love it or hate it, Russell?
Yeah, it is a lot of money, but I think I'm going to say love it because they got the rights to it now, and they can say it's theirs.
All right.
I love it. You own it. You got.
I'm going to say hate it only because this much money flowing through college football, give some of it to the players.
Good point.
And that's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah.
Continuing with college football, Jalen Hurts' dad, of course, the quarterback for the Alabama Crimson Tide, his dad says that Jalen might transfer if he doesn't begin the season as a starter. Love it or hate it?
I hate it because really, in a way, Jalen Hurts already proven what he can do on the field, led his team to a national championship. So, I'd rather stay at Alabama. Don't transfer because you're going to hurt your chances to try and get into the NFL.
All right.
I'm going to say hate it because I think the dad was in the wrong here putting it out publicly. I think that should be between the player and the coach here, and his dad should have, and no respect, but he should have stayed out of it. I know it's his son, but he should have stayed out of it, left it alone, let his son be a man, and have that conversation with Nick Saban. Of course, I'm sure that they are getting along just fine.
Right.
But his dad obviously is a parent and wants what's best for him. I get that. So, but I'm still going to say hate it.
I agree. I'm going to say hate it too. His dad doing this kind of reminds me of LeVar Ball. Of course, Lonzo Ball's dad, who a lot of times puts his foot in his mouth and says some things and puts himself in places that he shouldn't be. This, to me, reminds me of that. Let Jalen go out and play. Even if he doesn't win the starting job, as we've already discussed, Nick Saban might end up playing both of them.
Yeah.
So I don't think that transferring is going to do him any good, although I really don't think either way Jalen Hurts is going to have much of a career in the NFL. But that's just my opinion on that. Staying with football, Michael Vick, of course, remember Michael Vick, the quarterback for the Falcons predominantly, played for a couple teams, but he's going to be the offensive coordinator for Atlanta's Alliance of American Football team. Now, I mentioned this Alliance of American Football League that's starting up next February. First time we talked about it was Steve Spurrier is going to be the head coach for the Orlando team, and we wondered, will we start seeing any more big names to join Steve Spurrier, and here we are. So Mike Vick being the offensive coordinator. Love it or hate it?
I love it. Go Coach Vick.
All right.
I love it. I like the fact that we're having another organization show up in football because I think NFL's coming out and stale with the way it is, and they're not really there for the fans that it used to be. So, yeah, love it.
I love it too. Now, I'm not sure what you're going to get from Vic as an offensive coordinator. I don't know that he necessarily has any coaching experience, but I love this one the same way I loved the Steve Spurrier love it or hate it part because you're bringing in some big-time names to get people interested in this league because it's a startup. And just like they brought Spurrier to Orlando because Florida people know him, they're bringing Michael Vick to Atlanta because, of course, Falcon fans know him as well. Now, this last love it or hate it, I wanted to tie it in because Michael Vick has some histories with canines. But the Jacksonville Jaguars are getting ready to construct and open a dog park in the south end zone area of Everbank Field, of course, where they play football. So, dog park in a football stadium. Love it or hate it.
Look at me, a lot of cleanup there for the workers, a lot more for them. But I'm going to say love it. It gives somewhere for the fans to come and maybe non-fans to come to bring their dogs with. Of course, everybody loves their dogs, so they want them to bring them wherever they go. This could be an opportunity for them to do that. So, love it.
I'm going to say hate it. No dogs allowed in the stadium.
I'm going to say hate it, too, for that reason. Now, I know some...
Dog haters.
Dude, I have 2 dogs at home. Some stadiums in football and baseball, every once in a while, will have a bark in the park day where you can bring your dog to the stadium. But that's once, maybe twice a year. And that's in baseball where you have 162 games. Because, yes, a lot of people have well-trained dogs. A lot of people don't, though. And all the dogs are allowed. So you're going to have dogs barking. Maybe some of them trying to fight with each other. Some of them, peeing and pooping in places they shouldn't be doing that.
And scaring people who got a fear dog.
Exactly, that as well. So
just don't go by the park then.
And I get what they're trying to do. I get what they're trying to do because a lot of stadiums are trying to incorporate new and different things in their stadium because people aren't going to stadiums as much with TV and the internet. And people don't, having flat screens and surround sound in their houses. They don't need to go to the stadium. So in that aspect, I get it. But I think they might want to go a different route than trying to put in a dog park. So, but that's going to do it for this edition of the RO Sports Show, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. And of course, if you want, you can come back next week and watch us on the RO's Facebook page, the RO YouTube channel, the Richmond Observer website, the RO app, and you can also listen to us on the Classic Rock Radio. So many ways, and of course,
it's free.
It's all free.
It's all free.
And as I say, if it's free, give me 3. So
yes.
And of course, with that being said, we're part of Triple Thursday. Of course, after us on the Classic Rock will be Confessing the Blues, and you can catch Triple Thursday with Live at 5, the RO Sports Show, and Confessing the Blues every Thursday, starting at 5 o'clock, of course. And speaking of that, when we come back next week, we're going to be talking about the NBA playoffs again. We'll be recapping the NFL draft. And everything else, NASCAR, all the good stuff that's going on in the sports world. So make sure to come back, check in back with us again next Thursday at 5:30 p.m. right here on the Richmond Observer's website, Facebook page, YouTube channel, all that good stuff. And we'll see you again right next week. Have a great night.